Welcome back.
No, it
to
just
the
started.
gaming-
You're like, I'm
Fuck
sorry.
me, man.
Go.
You just leave this in.
Kelly, I mean, are we live streaming? I don't think we.
Yeah, that'd be pretty funny.
Let me edit that out in post, bro.
Wait, are we live or not?
Yes, we are. Go.
No, we're not.
Welcome back to the
Epic.
Gaming and Gaming Accessories Podcast. Today we are with me, myself, Jeff, and I'm here with Garrett, Ben,
Hi.
and Harry.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Sorry we've been gone for so long.
Gotta keep up the
I'm not.
We have had a little bit of a hiatus because of we've been on a vacation to Florida and we've been doing other things, but we're here now, and we hope you stay with us for the next 2 hours.
So, who wants to kind of speak on, give the rundown on what we're talking about?
Sure, I'll continue then.
Go for it.
So we're going to be talking about today just DLCs in general and how we think of them when it comes to whether it's released when a game is released, or should it be main game? Should we get it for free? What are our thoughts on DLCs in general? Microtransactions as well. What do we think about, how predatory can they be, and what are good and what are bad microtransactions? Another topic we're going to talk about is, what direction we feel the gaming industry is going when it comes to unfinished games being completely published, and
Don't know what you're talking about.
what they, what's going to happen with that. And finally, we'll probably end off with the iOS 15 beta and our first impressions. I know I and Harry have used it for about a week now, and Garrett's been using it for a little while now. So
Yeah, I've been on since beta 1 or 2, and we're on beta 6.
yeah.
And it's
Wow.
about every week or two that that they release a new beta. So almost 6 weeks at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot to change the name of the stream, so I'm updating that right now. Sorry for anybody who sees episode 6 right now. I'm updating it as we
Goodness
speak.
gracious. I thought you guys were professionals.
No. Professionals.
I should have known better.
It's an awful take.
And
So,
all right, we're
let's
changed.
start with DLCs. And start with that.
DLCs,
Oh, boy.
DLCs.
This is like when I have something to say about.
I could say fair things as well. Ben, do you want to start, or who wants to start?
I'd love to, as it
All
were.
right. What do you think? What do you think of DLCs? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you?
Well, I think the best way to judge things in life is on a
Wrong.
one-to-one basis. Yeah. However, in terms of DLCs in general, I do think they're good. I think DLCs are good, but there are different sort of DLC business strategies that companies employ that can seem more like ass covering than actual extensions to game content. And
What would you call a good? Like, give us an example. What would you call a good example and a bad example?
example? Okay. Easy, frankly. Now, this is, to anyone who's seen how I've chosen to represent myself and what I've talked about, no big surprise, Fallout New Vegas has some pretty dang schlapper DLCs. Like, there's a couple that just add items to the game. That's whatever. Those are very, sort of neutral territory in my book. However, where Fallout New Vegas and other Bethesda games, at least to some degree, shine in terms of DLC is the more story-based things. And especially in Fallout New Vegas, it is so insanely good in terms of how the DLC not only expand on what is there, but also manage to link it back to the main narrative. And it's very interesting to make, because a lot of the time, a lot of the game, the character is sort of, character against the world, and that sort of continues throughout the DLCs, of course, but things sort of change a little bit. You're sort of made to feel like this big, powerful guy the whole time, and then there's like a DLC like Dead Money where you're chained with an explosive collar and forced to do what somebody else says. Or there's something where you're sort of in this big political scenario between all these warring powers, and then you get sent into this valley in the practical middle of nowhere between two tribes, and you have to help them succeed. And it sort of definitely shows the contrast, and it very well shows off the world of the game, as well as gives some very interesting story moments.
Now, do you mind if I ask you, when did those DLCs come out in relation to the game's release?
If you want honesty, I have no idea, and I'm going to have to look it up.
Okay.
Let us see. Because
Probably, if they follow the same pattern as previous Bethesda games, it was probably within a few years.
Because I always, or when I was exposed to pretty much any of the games, they'd already had all their DLC released.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ben's
go-
looking at
go on.
dates, so you can tag it
Go.
if you want.
So I was gonna go off onto a different tangent about a different game, if that's fine.
Yeah, we can drop back into that topic.
So I was going to talk about another one that I feel pretty good with. DLC, whether you call it DLC or a microtransaction, I don't know what you'd want to call it, but it's Dead by Daylight's expansion packs, I guess.
I'd call that a DLC because microtransactions. Well, I would draw the line. I don't know how anybody else is drawing a line, but I would draw the line between DLC and microtransactions as downloadable content, meaning you buy it and you get it, whereas microtransactions are more of like, I would kind of like. Would you draw the line at like loot boxes as microtransactions?
Yeah, I think loot boxes and like the Fortnite system where you can buy like V-Bucks, like that is
yeah, like you're
that is what I
buying
would
in-game
define as
currency
microtransactions.
to
Like
buy
also
stuff in the game.
most MOBAs do things, I think.
Yeah, like
Hang on.
MOBAs. Now, Jeff, are you? I'll let
which
you
is
get
weird,
into. Yeah, sorry.
That's where this is a weird line to draw because, when I think of microtransactions, I think of CSGO cases. You unlock a case and you get a skin that doesn't change any of the gameplay, but you have something tangible, in game.
Yes,
But
like Fortnite
when it comes to
and their
Dead by Daylight, you buy this thing for $10, $15 or whatever. You get 3 characters and you get like the ability to unlock 9 more perks, unusual, sometimes less, whatever. And but you don't have to. It's not like
I call that
actual
DLC.
game or anything. Yeah,
I would consider
don't know
it
exactly
a
what it'd be.
microtransaction.
But you see, another thing you can do, however, is if you buy the currency with microtransaction, you can buy the characters instead of just like buying them outright on the store page. You can buy them like individually. So instead of like getting the pack for 3 characters, you can get like this one specific killer that you want or this one specific survivor that you want. It's not limited.
I would still call that DLC because similar to something like Smash Bros, you can get the Fighter Pass, which is like $30, but you can also pay $6 and just get Joker or just get Sephiroth, So because I feel like microtransactions could be subjugated into, does it give you any in-game advantage? Not really, but also some games, loot boxes can give you advantages. So it's really a hard line to draw, but I feel like what you're talking about, I'd still call it DLC despite being able to buy them separately, because a lot of games do, okay, you don't want the bundle, you can save $5 if you get the bundle, or you can buy a character separately.
Yeah, like I said, it's a weird line, and I mean they call it an expansion pass on.
I'd call that DLC then.
Yeah. I mean that's looking at it on Steam. That's what they call it. So I mean, I think it's probably more along the lines of a DLC.
Yeah, expansions are a type of DLC, I'd say.
But yeah, so anyways, I think they do that completely fine. They give you a good amount of content, and especially for some of the more licensed killers like Freddy Krueger or more recently,
Nemesis?
Nemesis from Resident Evil, you have to, pay for them anyways, like with your actual money. But I think, having them as being added to the game in general is really cool. So, I think they did a really good job with this sort of system.
Let me ask you something, because I don't play nearly as much Dead by Daylight as you.
Yeah.
You probably know an exact number. I know killers come with the game, but how many killers as opposed to how many DLC killers can you, do you think base game is still worth it?
Oh, totally. I mean,
there's 5 base games.
Yeah, you start off with 5 off of base, but one of the, 2 of them are top tier killers.
Yeah,
that you can, it doesn't, because I mean, with a game like Dead by Daylight, you have a ranking. You can, very eminently see that the trapper is not as good as the spirit or a huntress or nurse, right? But you get the nurse and you get the huntress for free, and you also get the trapper for free. But you can see and tell by their powers that some of them are a lot more overpowered than others. But then there also is DLC killers like Freddy Krueger, who is a lot better than someone like, I don't know, the Demogorgon. And you still pay, the same amount, but
it doesn't halt the experience of somebody who was, say, playing without buying any DLCs.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
you just have to buy them if you want them.
If I may chime in, something that Dylan mentioned to me, a friend of ours, about the way Behavior, which is the publisher of Dead by Daylight, handled killers in terms of who's free and who's not, it was sort of, they kind of looked at the meta of the time, and they actually did add some of these, like Jeff said, a couple of the free killers are sort of these top tier killers. That was intentional, to my knowledge. That's what Dylan told me, at least. And to sort of balance things out in terms of saying, okay, well, if these guys are at least seem like they may be maybe not overpowered, but much more powerful than others, they actually did, the smart thing and offset that by saying, well, now everybody can have them. And I'm not sure if the people who bought them initially were reimbursed in a fashion, but...
Well, I think it was more everyone came free, though.
That's just what I heard. Not necessarily...
Has a killer ever been nerfed? Has a killer ever been...
There's always changes to certain killers' abilities, and it's largely dependent on their perks, which is it's a whole system in terms of certain killers have certain abilities that can be transferred between certain killers, and some are somewhat almost objectively better than others, and yada, yada, yada. So there is a way to kind of game the system, but there is also a mechanic which they use to sort of circumvent that, called the Shrine, where you can use free currency you gain by just being successful in the game, to buy perks that you otherwise wouldn't have access to without buying the character. So it's a very smart strategy, is what I'm saying. Yeah. I think they handle things very well.
It also, when it comes to Nurse, for example, she's a free killer, and her main ability is to be able to blink across the map and blink through walls. And compared to other killers, this is extremely overpowered, because it's in a league of its own. How broken the Nurse's ability is really good. It is, really makes her a really top tier killer, but it's very hard to master, and you really have to, dedicate your time into being good at it. But also you can pay, $5 for the Spirit, which, is also an S tier killer, but you still have to pay for her, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't have any problems with that, honestly, but it's just how it is.
I think as long as the base game, what you're paying for the base game, gives you a good amount of content, because this is a drastically multiplayer game, because DLC on a drastically single player game is completely different.
Right.
True. I think an expansion pass can be... Expansion pass, the word expansion pass, can mean something completely different in the context of Dead by Daylight or something with Pokemon. like DLC is like it could, because it's such a broad term. Unless you had anything more to say on that, Jeff.
No.
If Harry wants to say a good, so I guess we'll just do it in this sort of thing. Everybody says a good implementation of DLC, and then everybody tries to say a bad. So Harry, if you'd like to give your take, or if you're still thinking, I can, but go ahead.
So,
Is he cutting out?
I'll use Monster Hunter World. Monster
fine.
Hunter World has, and so it has like various cosmetics and stuff you can buy. But I mean, cosmetic DLC I never really have a problem with because, like, I think that the cosmetic DLC for Monster Hunter World is a little overpriced. But you also don't have to buy it. Like, if you don't buy it, it's not going to affect your enjoyment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The DLC for Monster Hunter World, though, Iceborne, is hands down one of the best DLCs that I have ever played because it was like, I mean, it felt like a whole new game.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a massive DLC, and it was like a whole new game world, new regions in said game world, like a whole new roster of monsters to fight. It was incredible. If we want to talk about bad DLC,
Is that all you have to say on Monster Hunter, or?
I mean, most of the games that I play, I guess. So there's Monster Hunter, and then like another example is like Skyrim. Skyrim has 3 DLC. The Hearthfire DLC catches a lot of flack because all it adds is like 3 buildable player homes, and you can adopt kids. Yeah, no, Hearthfire is one of my favorite of the DLCs. Like, I love all of the Skyrim DLCs.
Real.
Yeah, exactly. It was like it feels like you're actually leaving a mark on the world instead of just being some guy. But then the Dragonborn and Dawnguard DLCs are also amazing. Dawnguard, I would say, is more amazing for the actual story from the DLC.
I guess
whereas Dragonborn added like another whole new region to the world. With its it was its own separate region that you go to. It had its own separate dungeons, a completely different feel. It really does feel like another country. Like it was just really good.
It is worth noting that it was a rehash from an older game, but
I mean, yeah, but that's the whole Elder Scrolls franchise is really like all building upon each other.
Yeah,
which is
it's a good thing. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's very uniquely done. Not a lot of games manage to do that.
All right. If I was to say one off the top of my head, I'm glad Harry didn't take my point because he heard me say it earlier, because I would have had to go look for another game. It's not that I don't have other games that I love the DLC with, but I loved, as Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 was coming out, I would always buy the DLC packs when they came out because I was playing the game when there was no DLC. And then I was getting the DLC packs as they came out. And man, I liked it so much because what they would do is the Dragon Ball Super anime would air something, like an arc would come out. And then it would be like, all right, we're going to add these characters who are new to the series in here. And we're going to give you a story mission that has to do with what recently happened in the show. And you're going to be able to go play it. Because Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 focuses really big on, hey, the Dragon Ball timeline is being distorted. Go fix it. You're a time patroller. So what they would do is they would take the anime, change it up a little bit, say, hey, you've got to go fight this big bad boy yourself because time is being manipulated. Like, a lot of the times just like, yeah, Goku was supposed to beat this guy, but he got his ass kicked. And now you've got to go in and back him up, or it doesn't. Not always just it's not always that's the case, but or like Goku's supposed to fight someone and then he doesn't even fight them at all, and then the timeline changes. So one of my favorite ones was like the Goku Black DLC, where you could go fight the big bad boy from that arc. I don't want to go too much in because probably only Harry's gonna know what I'm talking about. But it was also the Tournament of Power DLC where they added Jiren, big bad boy of the last anime arc, before they added Ultra Instinct Goku. So we had Jiren and we had Blue Goku, and because Blue Goku fought Jiren in the show, and then Ultra Instinct fought Jiren, and we got Ultra Instinct later. So it was just like,
wait, they didn't wait for like the arc to end; they just added it.
Yeah, they were adding characters as episodes of the anime were coming out.
It's really pretty cool.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Xenoverse 2 launched when Super wasn't finished. I believe Resurrection F was already out. Obviously, the first two arcs of Super were reanimated, the movies, and either way, the movies got put into Super. So we had all the DLC from Xenoverse 1 put into base game for Xenoverse 2. But the base game was already so long, and then as new content was coming out in the show, we were getting more content in the game, despite the game coming out in, like, 2016, probably. We were still getting DLC in, like, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's,
nice. Yeah.
like, those developers did not move on to work on Dragon Ball Kakarot. And Dragon Ball Kakarot, they already had a DLC planned on day one. Nice. They already had the Beerus arc planned for DLC on day one. Whereas it was a different developer. I think the developers of Xenoverse truly cared about that game.
Yeah.
Whereas Kakarot came out, gameplay is completely different developer, and we've already got like, oh yeah, pre-order, and get the deluxe edition, and you'll be guaranteed the DLC when it comes out in a couple months. So like, so you already have this content developed, and it could be in base game, but you want to make more than $60 on every game copy?
I will, maybe not an argument, but a slight, I guess, first off, an update. All of the DLC for New Vegas was released in the following year of 2011, after it was released in 2010. Okay. One of them being released in December / like early January. It depended on what console you were on. It said, like, it released on, I think it was like Xbox, and then it released on PC and PlayStation later or something weird like that. But the rest of it was like throughout 2011 until like, I think it was September or so, and it released it originally in November, so that's like kind of a year. And that would, rightfully so, imply that maybe, I'm not necessarily sure if this DLC was planned beforehand or what, but, and I do sort of, I guess it really does depend on the angle the developers takes, because I do believe you could sort of see it in that light as, oh yeah, the developer already has this content planned, and they aren't adding it so they can get more money. And I think that's a fair argument, but I do also think that there is slight importance to how do you say, refurbishing a game? And because there's definitely, at least, once again, I'm going to go back to Fallout New Vegas and sort of say, while the DLC in Fallout New Vegas is great, and I do like it quite a bit, I would argue that it wouldn't really fit into the main story. And the same thing goes for most of Bethesda's DLC, is that it's always story adjacent, as opposed to, there's relations, sure, and things from the main story can influence the DLC, but largely it's isolated. And I do think that's sort of almost the developer's excuse to say, well, this wouldn't really make sense otherwise, but I wanted to include it. So, and there's also my point on refurbishing, is that especially for very quote-unquote hardcore gamers who will, a new game will release, bam, they've already finished it. Like, they've already spent who knows how many hours instead of doing anything else playing this game. And that's like, that's fine. I'm not really trying to criticize that. I'm just saying that's what some people do. But that's a really good way to wear yourself out with a game. And that's ultimately not really the developer's intention, and I think that's why DLC can provide a really good sort of refreshment to the base game in terms of saying, oh, new adventure, new lands, new stuff for people who have already experienced the main game, but still enjoy, the gameplay, the combat, the story, the writing, everything the game has except more. Wow. And I think, well, what's up?
I know there's people that do that, but like, I just can't help but think I don't think when these developers release things such as Day 1 DLC, because Day 1 DLC is a thing. I don't think that's what they're thinking about. I think the sole intention is to sell deluxe editions. I
think it depends on the developer for certain. Because there is, at least part of the issue becomes, is that DLC on Day 1 is a very AAA mindset. And it's also a mindset that really has only evolved in recent years, at least to my knowledge, most of the time. We'll get into that.
We're going to be getting into the direction that things are going.
But yeah, I do think, there is really no good argument for deluxe editions in terms of games trying to. And I will admit, something I was going to maybe get into later, but could mention now, is the fact that I am terrible when it comes down to things like deluxe editions. I don't really have what one might call FOMO most of the time, but when it comes to games, for some reason, I do. So a lot of the time, if there's something new releasing and I have the money on me, and it's like, oh, hey, you can get the deluxe edition. It's like, oh, shit, yeah, why not? And
you ever notice... Like, and this can go to you and Jeff and Harry. They're almost trying to sell us. Not almost. They are a lot of the time. Not in every case. They're trying to sell us stuff that's not even done.
Sure, right.
The deluxe edition. Yeah. You are just promised. Oh yeah, you'll get the DLC when it comes out. If it comes out like a month after release, it's likely to say that it was done. Right. When it came out, but if it's these things that like, oh, you'll get a DLC pass, so you'll get the next 4 DLCs that come out, and that could be an entire year. Like, the third pack just came out. They want you to buy it early, and you're running that thing. What if you don't like it? Mm-hmm.
I think
course that's up to the buyer, but what do you?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that is more up to the buyer than anything. At least if it's something like if it's like the Kakarot situation where they say, buy the deluxe edition, and then in a month after release, you'll get the DLC that's very obviously already done. Yeah. At that point, I think it's scammy.
Because it was Beerus Saga. We knew that Kakarot was only going to cover up to Z, and we weren't going to get any super material. And then they're like, hey, here's Beerus.
Yeah, that's pretty scummy. But So Crusader Kings 3, when it finally went up for sale, I bought the deluxe edition. The deluxe edition, if I remember correctly, was like only $70.
Yep.
And to be fair, if we want to talk about like DLC Nazis, look no further than Paradox.
Because, that's what I was going to go for my
bad. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Crusader Kings 2 has like 30 plus DLC. City Skylines has a ton, Stellaris has a ton, but at the same time, for games like CK3 and City Skylines, for City Skylines, it's more about like that's closer to cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
For CK3 and Stellaris, that's more different avenues that you could take, because these games, CK3, CK2, and Stellaris are all very much built around multiple playthroughs, because there's a million different, or with Crusader Kings 2 and 3, there's a million different historical civilizations that you can play as, and you can even make your own in CK3. And in Stellaris, there's all of the like pre-built civilizations, or you can design your own species with their own culture and everything. So, they're at that point, I think the DLC and the huge amount of DLC is more forgivable than in other games. I mean, another game that has a ton of DLC is Ark Survival Evolved. And as much as I love this game, it has 10 DLC, three of which were free, to be fair. But the 7 that weren't were all, I think they were all $30 at release, except for Genesis, Genesis was like a $50 season pass, and it comes with, because there was Genesis Part 1 and Part 2. And when Ark Survival Evolved, their first DLC was Scorched Earth, and when they had announced Scorched Earth, it was $30, and Ark Survival Evolved, the base game, was still in early access. In fact, it didn't leave early access until it was either last year or early this year. So, I mean, it had been under development for years, and they'd started releasing DLC before they'd even finished the base game. Wow. So there are points.
You're buying early access. That should be added to the base game.
Exactly. That was people's main argument. But
you want to know another game?
What?
Unless you're done. Are you done talking about that or no?
I was just going to say that, like, their DLC is a very mixed bag. Because Ark has its sort of own inbuilt lore. And there's 4 of the DLC are considered part of the main story. Or it's 3 of the DLC are. I'm sorry. 3 of them are considered part of the main story, and those ones are phenomenal.
So
the rest of them are very hit or miss. Yes.
So I have a question. Do you think those DLC, like in Fallout 4 or what was it, Fallout
New Vegas? Yeah.
And in Ark, that expand the normal story further, do you think those should be part of the main game that you bought, or do you think they need to be, or like, is it right for them to be DLC? Like, no matter how good it is, do you think you should pay more for it, or it should be part of the actual story for free?
To be fair, the situation is different between these two, because, like Ben said, Bethesda DLC especially is not actually part of the main core storyline of their games. It's usually its own separate storyline that...
Okay.
Like, I haven't played any of the New Vegas DLC, but I know in the Skyrim DLC, and I do know you can do this in the New Vegas DLC, you can complete the DLC before you complete the main story. Yeah. Like, it is completely separate, but there are various checkpoints that the game will save, and then if you go and do these DLC after certain points in the main quest, characters will comment on certain things, and that's about the extent of the connectivity there.
Oh, okay.
With Ark, it's very different, because the 3 DLC that are a part of the storyline are very much parts of the story, like they're actual chunks of the story. So if you don't have those 3 DLC, you don't have the full story. If you didn't have the DLC and you weren't aware of what happens after you finish the main story in the base game, it's sort of ambiguous where the characters end up. Like, it's not just... It doesn't tell you where they go. But, I mean, I think if you start one of the DLCs, it tells you where it's picking up from. But for the most part, they aren't... The core story isn't... Like, it doesn't name drop the DLC or anything. The DLCs all name drop into each other, I believe, but... So you can play the main game without needing the DLC. So I don't think it's super bad that they aren't part of the main game. And to be fair, they're all massive, and they're all like their own sort of stories within themselves. So,
because I mean, I was thinking about it, and I think my comment was a little thinking about it more. It made me think, if you're paying for a book, for example, right? Like, we'll use Harry Potter as an example, right? You buy the first Harry Potter book, and then the story continues, but you still have to buy the second Harry Potter book, and then the third, and the fourth, and so on. I guess it's sort of is that sort of same thing. It's not. It's an expansion to the story, but you pay for it, and I guess it's a little less predatory than I had in my mind when I initially asked the question, but
right. And then another thing to keep in mind is that when Arc started, it was $30, and it's still $30, even having left early access. So it's not the same as buying, a AAA RPG, and then, halfway through the story, they say, all right, that's all be included in the base game. It'd be like if you finished half a Witcher game, and they said, okay, to continue the story missions, you got to buy the DLC. And while there is technically a story in Arc, it is not very forced upon you. You can freely ignore it. It'd be sort of like if there was a story in Rust. Like, it'd be there. Most people would ignore it because they're busy shooting naked folks on the beach with AK-47s. So,
best pastime in the world, yes.
So I wanted to go into one that I don't buy into because it seems like a lot.
Here we go.
And nor would I ever advise anyone into unless you really like the game. And I have a feeling, I think Ben has bought all of the DLC, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
What have I done?
$800 worth of DLC. The Sims 4.
Oh shit.
You have all those?
Not all. No, not yet.
Lost my voice.
99% of.
A lot.
So
what?
This is an EA Games moment.
Maybe I could be talking out of my ass, and I say I don't like it because there's so much. But looking through it, it just seems like a lot of cosmetic additions and a lot of like really small. You can add stuff to your house. I mean, of course, you've got the $40 edition ones that add, island living, for example, which seems like a little cooler. But
look, may I?
How much,
No.
Ben? How much?
Oh, how much?
Yep.
How much money? I have no idea. I leave that alone. That sits somewhere outside of my mind, so I may be at peace with myself. But however, I will say
You regret all the purchases.
they've been doing this since The Sims 1, first off. However, there's been, I feel like, because, however, it has changed for the worse.
Yes.
Because there are certain things. Okay, so The Sims 3 is basically like my jumping point. That's the game I know. It's the game I've played. Haven't played Sims 2 or 1. Tons of DLC, or well, maybe not tons. There was a lot of DLC for The Sims 3.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't feel as... okay, I'll explain real quick. Because when you start up The Sims 3, it will take you to the main menu, like little launcher, and it will say, hey, which DLC do you want to enable? It will actually enable it, or it advise against enabling all the DLC at the same time, which does imply that it's not really meant to enhance your base game experience. Well, it is meant to enhance your base game experience, but rather you don't need to have everything. At least that's kind of the feeling I get. And of course, it is because as you said, those $40 ones, that's sort of what The Sims 3 had more so than anything else. Like, there's ones where you can go to different locations in the world. There's other, tons of stuff that nobody should really care about except Sims players. And even that's stretching it. But I like it. It was all right. It's definitely a lot more than other games. But it's purely your choice. However, The Sims 4, when you go to the main menu of The Sims 4, they will both ask you, like, oh geez, it's bad, man, because it'll show all of the DLC you own, as well as also highlight what you don't have,
Mhm.
and I am near certain in like the actual game, there are certain things, like it will show the things, like especially world spaces, you don't have and say, hey, this is part of the blah. If you want it, buy it. And it's like, bruh, this isn't how it's... I don't like the way it's going, but I do like what's in the DLCs for the most part. Not entirely.
Because I'm looking at this stuff, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, $40 for the seasons pack, right? Seems
Yeah.
fine, I guess. I don't have
That's
a
a
problem
lot.
with that. City
Most of
living,
them
island
like
living,
that.
that's fine. But when you're going $20 for a spa day, you know, or it looks like all it adds is probably like a spa place on the map.
Yeah. That's
How
all
much
it
are
is.
the pets?
It doesn't. Oh boy, the pets is a big fucking debacle.
$40 so you can own a dog.
$40 for the
Right.
pets. It does
Is
also
it
add.
actually $40?
It's
It
actually
is.
$40.
Jesus.
It does also add other
We got
stuff.
cats too.
What's the
It
dog
does.
doing? What's
It also
dog
adds the
doing?
veterinarian career and a new world space and yada yada. But
Hey, think about this: can you get a dog for $40?
no.
A real
You
dog?
get a dog for free.
Oh,
Yeah,
Literally
totally.
That is
You
true.
go to the shelter and you find the dogs that they're putting down, and they will literally just give them to you. Like
But those
you
are the
might have
worst
to,
dogs.
like, shut up. You might have to like
That's
nurse the dog back
controversial,
to health
man.
or whatever, but the dog is literally free.
Like toddler stuff for $10,
Yes.
or
man.
let's
You
see.
don't want to see what I own. I'm
Yeah,
just
so
gonna-
if
Do
we
you
wanna
own the
talk
toddler
about-
DLC? Do you own the toddler DLC?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so if you want to
Free
talk about a
stuff.
game that has
Well, that's free, never
DLC,
mind.
if you want to talk about a game that has DLC that needs to be included in its base game, look no further than The Sims 4.
Honestly, maybe okay. So, like I said, some of the
Sims 3 did the
$40
same thing.
packs, island living, city living, stuff like that, fine. I'm completely fine. Like, because it's like a whole new map. It's a whole new
Yeah,
you know,
that stuff is
a lot
understandable.
of content is added in those. That's fine. But when
$10
it comes
baby
to
DLC.
stuff like kids or toddler stuff, like you get slides, I guess.
Yeah, dude.
Like for outside, like different playground outside stuff, and that's it for $10. That's like
Bruh.
that seems like a lot.
Because
I don't know. It just and spa day, like $20 for going to be able to go to the spa, so your sim can feel better than you actually do in real life. That
Wow.
you know, it just seems dumb.
That cuts deep.
Hey, man. I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah. Yeah, Ben, why don't you take yourself to the spa, bruh?
You gross.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to go on that little rant. It just
I
seems
will
like
add, the biggest debacle in The Sims was how you may notice there is a DLC called Pet Stuff, which added practically nothing.
like the rest
But-
of them.
It required the Pets DLC to be able to use half of the content in it.
Oh
huh.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So you need the $40 pet DLC, so then you can get the $10 pet
Mhm.
stuff DLC that adds like laser pointers.
It's DLC for a DLC.
Yes.
Yeah, that was people's argument, and it's
That-
fair. Yeah,
So, I wanted to bring up, because I feel like we could talk a little bit on this. A DLC pack that I was furious about
Uh-oh.
was the Pokemon Sword and Shield expansion
Oh, boy.
pass. Okay. First, I haven't played it, okay? Because I played Pokemon Sword and Shield. I didn't really like it all too much. I've talked about that before. I'm not going to get into why, because that's irrelevant. But data miners mined into that game, or, got into the game's code.
Oh, yeah.
Bulbasaur isn't in the game when I'm playing, but Bulbasaur can be put into the game by changing the code. Bulbasaur and all of his information are in the game, and then they started doing it with other Pokemon, putting them into the game by modding them in. I don't know how they do it, but they're not like writing their own code or anything. They're just getting the Pokemon through other means. And they're like, this Pokemon and all their moveset are in the game. Why can we not get them? Boom, expansion pass. Comes in the expansion pass, and it's just like, oh wow, this was in base game's files, and you said, no, sorry, no national Pokedex. No, none of that. None of these Pokemon you want. I don't think the expansion pass has national Pokedex, but none of these Pokemon, you have to wait and buy the expansion pass to do said thing. They had it all planned out. And why? It's because Nintendo fans half the time, not to insult, but will buy anything. And Nintendo knows that. Hence why they re-release so many games. Hence why they are all their legal battles with emulation. Even though, despite not putting these old games on their platform, they will still go to legal battles over them because who's to say they won't do it later? They're not, but they really like their intellectual property, and they will re-release a game if they want to re-release a game. Because they know people will pay $60 for it. Real quick.
Sure.
Just the Pokemon expansion pass. I already had a couple problems with the base game of that game, but to then see, oh wow, all this cool stuff, the expansion pass looks cool. Wait, a couple months ago, people were looking into this and they were seeing these Pokemon were in the game. It was in at launch, wasn't it? Now, if I didn't fact check myself at all at this, I'm recalling from. The reason I say this is because some Nintendo fans can be very passionate about their franchises. I was just going on this of when I was following the game as it was coming out and when it came out. I was seeing, oh look, they got these Pokemon here. Oh, this is DLC. This is DLC that was in base game. Go ahead.
Was it like a Bulbasaur expansion pack? Is that what it was?
No, it was a full expansion pack.
There were two. They were full expansion packs that added new territories that you could explore, a new kind of story. Most people don't really know Pokemon for its story, or at least I don't. But Thomas played it, another friend of ours.
But they added, like, from what I saw when he was playing it,
but yes,
like
they added the Pokemon
legendaries
in after the fact.
So
basically,
in base
in
game,
these new territories.
Correct me if I'm wrong because I didn't finish because I didn't really like it.
Yeah,
they only had a couple legendaries, if not the only two on the game covers, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so like Pokemon Omega Ruby, Jeff, you played some at least X and Y, right?
Yeah,
I did that.
So you know how you could like go off and find a ton of different legendary Pokemon from other regions, off in other areas of the region. They straight up, oh, you want to go do that? Expansion pass.
That's
Sorry, you get your on the game cover legendary, and we already have all these Pokemon in the game. You're going to have to wait for the expansion pass, buy the expansion pass, which it was 2 different expansion passes, depending on which game you had. So you don't even get all the content, which is how they get you. I went on the Nintendo store today. There's already top of the Pokemon page is $120 for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, both of them. They expect you to buy both the games, unless you have a friend who can trade you Pokemon. Obviously the trading, but if you don't have anyone for that, I know people who have bought both games.
Is this just a re-release for the Switch?
Yes, this is a, you could call it a remake of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah.
I know they've done like remastering and stuff like that, but you know, the Ruby,
I'm not talking about that game in itself. I'm just saying they almost expect you to buy both games.
Mm-hmm.
So not just because in the case of Sword and Shield, you get the legendary that's on your game cover. If you want the other one, buy the other game or have someone trade it to you because you can't breed them, you know. And that's fine, you know, you get the one on the game cover. You chose that game. But to have 2 separate expansion passes? not just one full expansion pass. You either get the sword expansion or the shield expansion, and that stuff was in base game.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
that's fair.
Why does
let me
Pokemon?
ask, does the do the expansion passes add different things? Like if you buy the expansion pass for Sword, do you get different Pokemon than you would from the expansion pass for Shield?
Yes.
I think that's only in the case of a couple Pokemon, though. I do believe they have
you can get them through
Pokemon that were
trading.
missing from the Pokédex, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. So
They had Pokemon.
Then that is pretty stupid. If it was just there's an expansion pass for both games, that would be one thing. And I mean, to be fair, the trend of you only get the legendary that's on the cover of your game has been going for a while. In fact, it's been going for a long time.
That's not the problem. I'm not saying you have to buy the other game. I'm saying almost all the recent Pokemon games, X and Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, I think Sun and Moon had it as well. You could go out and find a crap ton of legendaries, as that was post-game content. Post-Pokemon League content, you went legendary hunting. Legendary hunting is in the expansion pass.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, legendary hunting was like in Soul Silver, I remember distinctly, through entirely my own strength and not through the action replay, which for the uninitiated is a device which basically lets you cheat your Pokemon game. All through my own natural ability, of course, I beat the Elite Four. As soon as I did that, I went and tracked down Mewtwo. So, like, beating the game, that was, I mean, like we're saying, that's what you did after you finished the actual story, is you went legendary hunting. So I think that them having that, like, you can do it after you beat the game, but you must, of course, purchase the expansion pass, and then to have on top of that, if you want all of the Pokemon that you could possibly get, you have to buy the other game and then go catch them there. That is just a real slap in the face.
Well, they've had that.
They've had that for a while. They encourage trading. They encourage trading with friends.
Right.
Well, no, I mean the few Pokemon that you can't get from the expansion pass for the one game, they expect you to buy the other game and then the other expansion pass. Like, not getting the other legendary, that's fine. Because,
not getting a couple Pokemon, but expansion pass Pokemon being exclusive to that specific game's expansion pass.
That part's really stupid. And honestly, if they preserve that business model for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, I probably won't get them.
Yeah.
When I otherwise would have. And in fact, I was very excited to hear that they were remastering Diamond and Pearl, because Soul Silver is my favorite Pokemon game that I've ever played, and I desperately want them to remaster that for the Switch. So hearing that they were remastering Diamond and Pearl, I was super hyped up, because after that was Platinum, and then after Platinum was Soul Silver and Heart Gold. So hopefully they'll remaster.
I would love a Soul Silver and Heart Gold Switch port.
That was the most interesting Pokemon region, in my opinion.
Because you remember they released just the Game Boy versions, or no, the DS versions, as like digital. They digital released the DS version on the eShop. I want them to port Heart Gold and Soul Silver to Switch, man.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, I was reading about it, and the main hang-up is the fact that Soul Silver relied on the dual screen functionality of the Nintendo DS.
Yes.
But at the same time, so did Diamond and Pearl.
Mm-hmm. And
they were DS games.
I'm sure you could make some slight changes just to the DS version, move a couple interfaces, and port it over. Right,
or at least, or just have it so that you press a different button, because it was already that you press select or start to open up the menu on the bottom screen, like to switch your focus there from the top. So you could have that. The only issue would be during fights, and even then, it could just be, it's your turn to attack. You select what you're going to do, and then it'll switch from showing. Like the same way that it does in
in modern Pokemon,
yeah, like in Sword and Shield, it switches focus from like you moving around the world to the move list. That's
Yeah.
literally all they would have to do.
Remember, they did Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which was a Pokemon Yellow remake, but they wanted to incorporate Pokemon Go into it, so they made the wild Pokemon battles into motion control, catching.
Ugh.
I think that game is 10 out of it would be a 10 out of 10 if I could do wild Pokemon battles and not motion control. If I was able to switch it off, if I could just switch it off, 10 out of 10 game. I played it and I completed it. The motion control was annoying, but I didn't hate it. Back on topic. We can talk about Pokemon, just like our nostalgia and stuff, another time. But Ben and Jeff,
Hi.
we can do our finishing points on what we think of the Pokemon expansion pass. I don't like it. What do you guys think?
Unless Jeff would think. You go?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll just harp on it real quick. I mean, I haven't played any of the new Pokemon games as of recent. I mean, X and Y were the last ones that I played. But it does, from what you've told me, seem a little redundant because, I mean, in past, it's, just sort of been part of the game, being able to get more legendaries and stuff. So from what you're saying, it just seems very predatory, especially to the loyal Nintendo fans that will buy anything. So, I mean...
On top of that, in terms of Nintendo games, the Pokemon games are easily the most targeted towards younger audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Breath of the Wild, for instance, while Zelda is one of the core Nintendo series, it's also, like, Breath of the Wild really moved away from the rest of the games. Tonally, Breath of the Wild was... Visually, it was very bright, but, like, tonally, it was incredibly dark. Like, Breath of the Wild is essentially a fantasy post-apocalyptic game. Like, the whole world is gone. Everybody's dead except for, like, the 4 or 5 villages that are left on the map. Other than that, everything from the previous Zelda games is gone. Like, it's easily, other than, like, Majora's Mask, the darkest in the series. So while Zelda has traditionally been more for kids, and Nintendo in general has been more for kids, Breath of the Wild sort of moved in a different direction. But Pokemon has always been very marketable towards kids. So having a game that requires kids to spend that much money, it's just not cool.
No, totally.
That's like Fortnite with the V-Bucks.
I want the pretty skin.
Exactly.
No.
It's very much...
Start speaking on microtransactions then.
Yes.
Let me tell you about the time I got the pretty skin, okay?
Oh, you got the pretty...
I got
pretty
the pretty one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Microtransactions. The good, the bad, and the evil.
They're all bad and they're all evil.
They're honestly, at the end of the day, as much as I love games like Genshin Impact, I would have definitely just paid $60 for it and just give me all the characters and get rid of the energy system. That's energy systems are a lot more on the Japanese side of mobile games.
Yes.
But I do feel that Genshin, with how big it blew up on the internet, I feel like they're kind of bridging that gap into, hey, this is still successful, not on the phone. And
no, Genshin's a mobile game. It's on the phone.
It is on the phone, but it's also on the PC and the PS4.
It is on the phone, but it's also unplayable.
Yeah, it's coming to the Nintendo Switch.
What?
This is a sad day.
Like, I love the gameplay. I love everything about it. I hate the fact that it's a mobile game. Like, that game looks beautiful on PC, but it's hindered by the mobile game marketing and mechanics.
Yeah.
We can get into that now, into the mobile gaming and our the just microtransactions in general. Especially when it comes to free-to-play games, but not always when it comes to free-to-play games. It doesn't always have to be a free-to-play game that has microtransactions. Those are more on the side of loot boxes. But it's not always just the Japanese side that does gacha, you could call it, which that is in reference to a little fun fact. It would those little machines in Japan where you would try and get a keychain or something. It was
Japanese
called
gambling machines.
Yeah, it was called gachapon, and it was a play on words for like not for like gotcha as much as like people say that, you know. I think pawn was like a word that meant something like the joy leaving a kid's eyes or something. So like they're super happy. They put that coin in the slot, they twist it, and they don't get the character they wanted from the machine. Now when it was transitioned into a digital landscape, they called it gotcha. They got rid of that pawn part because that would be
There's
terrible.
no joy, only your gambling addiction.
It was pawn was the joy leaving when you didn't get what you wanted. So I feel like that's some terrible marketing if you refer to it as gachapon.
Based.
So they started calling it gotcha.
Stop lying.
But it's not always the Japanese. Like the Japanese games. It's Raid Shadow Legends is a gotcha game.
What?
And they put
That brings us up to our sponsor for today.
Yeah. Well, good luck getting a Raid Shadow Legends sponsor after we talk about how shitty microtransactions are.
Garrett does not express the opinions of the podcast.
Garrett's Garrett is actually he's been fired from the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be honest.
Personally, I love. Sorry, yeah.
You go.
I was just saying I love microtransactions, but in seriousness, what's up?
Ahead.
Says the freedom.
No, you keep going. You keep going. I keep cutting you off.
I will say that, like, in seriousness, I don't know why, because my weakness towards monetary transactions in video games that are not the main transaction has been shown.
He hasn't spent money on Genshin Impact.
I have not spent a cent on Genshin Impact, nor have I really on Smite or anything else that's free to play, and I don't know why. That's just not the way I operate. I don't know why that's like the I don't want to do that. I think that's stupid, and it's like
that's the hill you've chosen to die on.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's fine. I don't think people are stupid for doing it, but I think it would be stupid if I did it because I don't really care. Like, I mean, Harry can attest. Like, even in games like Red Dead, the money's you all earned by yourself. I don't buy clothes in that game.
Cool.
I just buy guns because those are useful.
The clothes are useful. You have to establish cowboy dominance.
It's true, but yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not too against microtransactions.
Now, yeah. To before you get into that, Jeff, because I want to hear what you have to say on it. While I did just say like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna talk about how bad they are.
Love Live.
To point out, I played the Love Live mobile game. I put money into that. I put money into Fate Grand Order, and that's a big mobile game. And I've bought every price tier at least once on Genshin Impact. That includes the $100 price tier. Granted, I did that because first transaction you get double. So when you bought the $100, you got $200 worth of the currency. That's the only that's. And they're refreshing that.
And so you still got ripped off by $100.
If we were going to talk about people spending exorbitant amounts of money on microtransactions, I feel we should bring Dylan in reference to the time when, on a whim, he bought a $100 GTA 5 shark card.
Oh, right.
While in a Discord call. That was pretty funny, I think.
That was kind of funny. But that was like that was the first time you met him as well, I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to Genshin Impact specifically, or I don't hate the gacha mechanics. I don't hate rolling for characters because they do give you a lot of free currency. Like Ben hasn't spent a dime, and he still has a good majority of the 4-star characters.
I also have 2 5-star,
and he has 2 5-star characters. Hasn't spent a dime. I have like 9 5-star characters, and I've spent some money. But granted, I put that money in because I'm like, I'm playing this game every day. I don't mind. So, but it does lead to addiction, gambling addiction. There's people out there who spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it. I wouldn't do that myself. But I'm not one to tell someone what to do with their money.
As you.
So to finish off the point, to let Jeff speak, I don't hate it, but my main thing about Genshin specifically is those gems can't just be used for pulling on the gacha. It can be used for your daily stamina, to refresh your daily stamina, to do dungeons, and I don't. That's a mobile game thing. Daily stamina is a mobile game thing, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Like, oh, let me top up with $10 so I can keep playing some dungeons for today. I hate it. But I don't necessarily hate microtransactions, because if I hated them, why would I be putting money into Genshin Impact?
Right. So I am actually a supporter of microtransactions in video games. I spend a lot of money on microtransactions. I'm going to be honest. I've spent a lot of money on CSGO, and I've spent a lot of money on Smite and on Brawlhalla, but I also have over 300 hours in all of those games, so I put a lot of time into them, but I will say that all those games are also free, and with that, they also don't have any DLC. So the only way for them to make money is through microtransactions, whether it be through skins or whether it be through, skins is usually the most, used thing. And when it comes to that, I'm completely fine with that. I think if they have no other way to make any monetary gain from the game that they spent hours on making, and they continue to push out content on it for free, I'm cool with spending $5 on a skin that I really like that I'll be able to keep and show off to people in game. I think that's completely fine, and I actually think it's a good practice. It's a lot. I think it's a difference when it gives you an advantage in video games. So like if you're paying $5 to be able to get a better, item that is
which games do that. Games do
that, and I think that's a lot worse. That I don't like those type of microtransactions. But like Fortnite, you can get skins and stuff and look cool, and it's a free game. I think it's completely fine, and I support it. Even with like Genshin Impact, sure you're getting different characters, and it's a gambling system, but so is a lot of the other.
To mention, Genshin's not PvP, so you getting that better character doesn't.
There's not even PvP option for that matter.
Even in like CSGO and stuff, there aren't any skins that give you a competitive advantage at all, or like in Smite even. It's like none of it gives you an advantage, but I still spend money to buy skins, so I feel better about myself.
Genshin has been pushing out a lot of content as well, so I see where you're coming from. I think it's like, hey, I'm supporting the developers, and they're going to keep pushing out good content.
Right, exactly.
Whether it be through in-game events that you can participate in. You don't have to spend a dime, but you can participate in. They need development money, or it be a whole world update, expansion. Free expansion. So I agree with that. I agree with that take. On the circumstance that it's like, hey, there's no advantages here, nor is it just like, oh yeah, you're buying this because, again, I mentioned I don't like the stamina aspect of Genshin Impact. I don't mind it too much on games that I'm playing on my phone because I'm not playing it for that long, but for a game that they're trying to market as play this for long periods of time because there's this massive world to go explore. But then you're halting me. But I will agree on the fact that if it's just a free-to-play game and you just want you want to buy that because you want to buy that, because you don't have to be like that. We have people like Ben who's just like, I don't care.
Mm.
I will say people who don't care about playing as Jonesy default skin. Go ahead.
something that is of interest is, at least to myself, the relative why behind the want, so to speak. Because it's not to say that I don't see the appeal at all.
Yeah, is that
cosmetics.
a predatory? Could that be a predatory aspect? Like,
but I will say,
you want it, dangle it in front of your face.
Because I do believe it is almost, maybe not a strategy, but it is very effective when you see somebody else who has that and you want that, then that kind of is the establishing point is jealousy, at least in some cases. Or maybe on the converse, if it's coming out recent or soon, and you know that somebody else is going to want to have it, but then you'll have it. Is the other inspiring point? Is it more so to use a somewhat antiquated term, flex? Is that the interest, or is that, just sort of secondary? Is it really just, it kind of looks funny, I like it? And I guess it really does depend on a person-to-person basis. But that's just, I'm really of neither party. I don't really care if your funny character looks like that. Most of the time I usually suck, so I'll just die to you either way. So,
I'm looking up games ruined by microtransactions. I'm going to look into that while you guys talk. I'm reading some
Harry,
stuff.
what's your opinion on microtransactions?
Microtransaction gaming.
So, I'm
know
not
Dan's
much of
opinion.
it online, but that is a game that really you don't need to. I don't know if it's because Red Dead Online has a much lower player count than Rockstar anticipated, and they're trying to boost it, or if it's just because the team that they have developing Red Dead they actually have a brain and a heart and a soul, and they actually care about the product that they're making, unlike GTA Online. But for one reason or another, they give away a good amount to go hunt down the treasure map, which is ridiculously easy. You basically ride out to where the map said the treasure is in the game world. You hunt around for 5 minutes, and then when you can't find the box, you pull up Google. It'll list the 4 locations that it can spawn at, and then you just check all of those. And basically, for 10 minutes of labor, you get a whole gold bar. And to start any of the various professions that they've added in with their updates,
Which actually make the game interesting.
They net you a lot of money. You only need about 5 gold bars to start all of them. So it's a ridiculously cheap buy-in for the amount of content that you're getting, because there is a ton of stuff there.
Something worth noting. At launch, I believe most of them were like 15. But they have, maybe even in part due to that low player count, gone down in price.
Yeah. And I mean, the bounty hunting is the only one where there's a stipulation, because there's a...
Yeah, there's like a second.
Yeah, there's a bounty hunter license, and then like a legendary bounty hunter license, or whatever it's called.
The super duper uber cool bounty hunter license.
Right. Yeah. But other than that, Red Dead really doesn't require you to buy their currency.
Yeah.
GTA Online has their lovely shark cards.
Ever so lovely.
I absolutely despise them. When I started playing GTA Online very early in its lifespan, relatively early, I wouldn't say very early, but pretty early, and it was really easy to get new guns, get all the coolest cars, and to just get money in general.
Get laid.
Then GTA Online experienced hackers, and after the hackers came in, GTA Online is actually my favorite example of the effects of inflation on an economy.
True.
Like, it was brutal. They basically made it impossible to get any money. All of the prices shot straight up. It's like $1,000 for a black t-shirt now. So I stopped playing the game. I never really played that much of it to begin with. I had some fun, but I never really played a ton of it. And when I came back, oh no, you know what it was? During the whole hacker period, Rockstar banned my account and actually deleted my character, I believe. I don't know if that was them or if my hard drive corrupted or whatever, but my account was banned, so I couldn't play for a month, and my character was gone. So I had to start again. And I never fully recovered from...
physically, mentally, or otherwise.
Yeah, from that period, just because of how ridiculous Rockstar made it to actually do anything in GTA Online without buying the shark cards. So, in that instance, I think microtransactions are evil. And then you have a game like Smite.
Where they're
I haven't spent that much, but I have spent more than I would like to.
I spent more than I would like to admit.
But
you
at
don't
the
even
same
play
time,
Smite that much, do you?
Huh?
You don't even play Smite too much, do you?
Not as often as Jeff or Thomas, but it's
Often enough, I would say.
Smite is an interesting game.
A fickle mistress.
I experience great mental and physical pain whenever I launch this game.
Like most.
However, every time I see Jeff and Thomas both playing the game at the same time, it's like crack cocaine, and I just have to play it with them. So I play more than I would like to because I honestly, occasionally I enjoy the game. For the most part, I just think about killing myself.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with cosmetic microtransactions all too much.
No, neither do I.
It's the same as other games will do it in the forms of DLC packs. Like, this clothing DLC pack.
New Obama still just dropped.
Do you guys remember the Star Wars Battlefront controversy?
No.
No, because I wasn't following. Look, in my opinion, the only real Battlefront is the Battlefront from 2005.
All right, this was 2018, or might have been before it. Star Wars Battlefront was released on Xbox One, PS4, PC. If you wanted characters like to play as in game, like if you wanted, I don't know if it was Darth. I don't know if it was Darth Vader. Right. I don't know if it was Darth Vader or some other Sith Lord who was really, really good and really, really fun.
Sith Lord.
He had to pull from loot boxes.
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
That's dumb.
Yeah. And
Literally
what's funny
powered.
is when I looked at this 11 games ruined by microtransactions, why are 5 of them EA games?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. EA's business model is severely hostile.
Like, one of them is Angry Birds, but like... and then the other one is Need for Speed. Need for Speed Online, they screwed it up with, like, it's titled as a free-to-play game, yada, yada, yada. EA, man. Like, they were doing stuff... Remember when they started experimenting in unskippable ads?
Yes.
Unskippable ads in
I did not.
games.
I did not.
Yes.
They put it in UFC, and I think they were doing it in NBA in 2K.
Holy shit.
And they kind of like responded to the backlash by making the game like 95% discount. Like soon after the controversy, and it kind of died down the backlash. But this isn't just put a billboard up, makes it a little bit more realistic, and we make some money off of it. Unskippable ads it's not just NBA. I saw they first experimented with it in UFC. Let's see. In-game advertising started with NFL 10 on the PS3, Xbox 360. EA inserted unskippable ads into UFC 4 and even in 2018's UFC 3 later. And they apologized for it and disabled it.
I think that EA is... Well, one, I think they're evil. Two, I think EA is honestly slowly dying because really the only game that garners them anything at this point, I think, is Apex. The 2K games and the UFC games, which I didn't even know there were UFC games, they are not big movers.
Well, they are big movers on the consoles.
I was about to say, I'm going to disagree with you there. The 2K games are very, very big.
They are very
so the
big
2K
movers
games, but I mean,
on the consoles,
that's-
especially.
So the 2K games, sure, but I mean
Yeah, but those games are for losers.
that too. You look at the Star Wars games. LucasArts actually just earlier this year.
Dissolves.
No, but
No, I know.
they actually went to Ubisoft to make the next Star Wars game, which is massive because
Yeah.
EA has made every Star Wars game for
Except
decades.
Wow.
Not decades, but
That's
like
fine.
for more than 10 years.
No, they have. Sure.
So the fact that LucasArts is actually going to someone else, and I feel like it might be because nobody perceives EA as a good company.
Yeah.
Like I have never met anybody in my whole life that has said, yeah, EA has good business practices that make me feel like a valued customer.
Well, I mean, they put out Anthem. Anthem was really cool, and then they said, "Okay, yeah, we see all the problems with it, guys.
Okay, no more.
We're gonna do an overhaul. We're gonna do a 2.0 update. We're gonna redo the game, and it's gonna be great." And then they canceled the project.
Yeah. And then like Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is a fantastic game, but the PvP is horrifically unbalanced because they stopped developing it. Even though, like, you had the everybody play Titanfall 2 this weekend thing that just happened. There are a ton of people that still love Titanfall 2, myself included. But unless I can get 4 people to play the PvE mode, I'm not going to play the game because the PvP is just terrible. It's horrifically unbalanced. There's no matchmaking. It's just horrible. And Battlefront 2 is the same way. There's no matchmaking in that game.
Well, yeah, EA is just known for bad things. We're getting away from paying for content a little bit, but they in their Battlefront situation, they got in a lot of trouble for that. A lot of I think they got in some sort of gambling lawsuit.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it's just like people want. Okay, so it wasn't Darth Vader. It was, I think it was the guy from the remake with the
Kylo
silver
Ren.
mask, Kylo Ren. Yeah,
Oh,
people
that guy.
wanted him, and you got to pull from that loot box.
He's kind
You
of funny.
might get him, man. You might, but you very well might not, because everybody knows when it comes to those gacha-esque loot box games, your percentages are pretty low.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if not below 0.
Yeah. So let's see. We intended that design for us to have more people play it over a long period of time. Yeah, whatever. Like, put it another thing to like what Destiny 2. Like, oh guys, spend money, I guess. Like, or
Guys, play the game.
Overwatch. I see this saying like, oh yeah, games got around this with only doing it cosmetically. And I think that's fine. Loot boxes, cosmetics, I don't have a problem with. Or loot boxes with characters in a single-player game. But EA did basically gacha mechanics in a multiplayer PvP.
Yeah.
Right. Giving, like I said earlier, giving an advantage to people who end up getting it. It's pretty ridiculous. I wanted to touch on something real quick on EA and how awful of a company they are. So I watched an amazing video by Emperor Lemon talking about the NASCAR franchise in general and how NASCAR it used to have multiple different companies fighting for, this one's a good NASCAR game, this one's a good NASCAR game, and this one's a good NASCAR game, but which one do you play? They're all made from different companies. But then EA ended up buying the rights to NASCAR in general, right? And they are the sole creators of the NASCAR games now.
Man, how did they mess it up?
That was
How
the
did they
same way
mess
that
it
Star
up?
Wars was.
And they completely fucked it. They made every single game after they bought the rights to NASCAR was atrocious. Like, because what it is, when it comes to those sports games, right, it's a monopoly on it, right? You have NASCAR, you have NFL, you have NBA, you have NHL, right? You have a monopoly on it. You have the rights to these players. You have the rights to the team names. You have the rights to everything that goes on in in each game, right? And they have a monopoly on it, and only they are allowed to use those names and stuff for the games. I know for a while there was back in like 2015, there was a huge debate between which soccer game was better, FIFA 15 or PES 15. But PES, like, it had a better like game mechanics and stuff, and it wasn't made by EA, right? But it was also, it didn't have any of the same players that you like or anything like that. So it was really, it's a really nasty, practice where they recycle the same thing every single year, and they just shit out the same thing every time, and they don't let anyone else make any other games for that franchise, and it's so gross.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened with. I think that's what happened with Battlefront, and I'd like to touch a little bit less on the EA sucks and more on the them having content that specifically makes the PvP better. I barely touched the PvP. Actually, I say barely. I have 9 hours in Battlefront 2. Most of it was PvP, and that was less of a fun experience because there's I don't remember what exactly it is, but they do have their EA fun bucks that you can get to make life easy or whatever. There's some battle pass or something, but there's a game mode for Battlefront 2 called Ewok Hunt, which is one player starts as an Ewok, and there are 20 stormtroopers on the forest moon of Endor, and it is pitch black. The Ewoks can see the stormtroopers can't see anything. It is absolutely terrifying as a stormtrooper, but it is one of the it's some of the most fun that I've had playing any Star Wars game ever. And it's because there's no way to buy your way to the top. When you're playing the PvP, you feel like, oh, okay, there's just nothing I can do. I'm going to lose and die because this person has sunk $1 million into this game, and I refuse to do that because either, I just don't want to spend that much money on a game that I already paid $60 for, or you just don't have that much disposable income.
Yeah, that's the thing. The game was $60.
Right. Yeah, if I pay $60 for a game, I should be able to get the same experience as everybody else. It shouldn't be I have to pay $60 and then another $300 to get to a point where I feel like I'm evenly matched with anybody. That's what I liked about the Ewok Hunt mode, is it was everybody, no matter what you do, starts at the same point. So it doesn't feel completely hopeless.
I forgot to mention, first off, better game equals cheaper microtransactions in EA's mind. But I forgot to mention when we were talking about DLC, shit on me again all you want, Ben, but there is a Love Live PS4 game.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention it. You get that game and it's free, and you just had to buy songs that you want to play. It's a rhythm game. You buy songs that you want to play, and you buy outfits. And again, I didn't see any value in the outfits. I just want to play the songs. If I wanted all the songs in the game, which are probably somewhere around maybe 100 songs or something, it'd be over $300.
Jesus Christ.
And if I want all the outfits as well, put another $300 on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's Square Enix doing that.
Mm. That was another thing that I liked about Xenoverse, was they had there's different types of DLC. There's the extra passes, the legendary passes, the ultra passes, or the packs.
Yeah.
And then there's music packs, and there's the super packs, ultra packs, or super extra ultra and legendary packs,
Sure.
and then there's 2 music packs. Now, to be fair, most of the packs are either $8 or $10, but they have passes that you can buy. So like the extra pass, there's 4 extra packs. The extra pass is $30. Each of those packs is $8. So you are saving a lot of money by buying the pass.
You save $2,
And
yeah.
it's like they add a ton of new missions, a ton of new characters. Like there's so much content crammed into those DLC that I didn't feel like a tool for spending money, because I legitimately knew that I was going to play and enjoy this content.
Heck, man, I bought it twice. I played all the way through it on Xbox One, and I had like up probably not all the DLC, but up to the current DLC that was out. Got into PC, bought Xenoverse 2 on a Steam sale, and I bought the DLCs as well. Like,
yeah, I didn't buy. I don't remember if I bought the DLC twice or not, but I bought the game again on my Switch because
I bought some of the DLC twice at least, and I would go for Steam sales as well. I don't think I paid full price for the DLC on PC, but I definitely paid full price for up to the because I eventually got my Xbox One back, but this was before I had a top tier gaming PC. This is before I had Xenoverse 2 on PC. I think I had Ultra Instinct Goku. So I got pretty far up. I didn't have like all the Tournament of Power stuff, but I know I had Ultra Instinct Goku, I'm pretty sure. Or at least Jiren. But like, so I bought it multiple times and I still don't feel like a chump because it was fun. But back on the microtransaction side of things, I'm seeing here like 2K NBA 2K14. You bought that game and you couldn't even trade players without buying microtransactions. You could barely play the game without buying something first.
I never played that one, but
this is 2014. So obviously, I don't think this is probably when EA said, "All right, let's try this," and then I'm sure it got really bad backlash. So I don't think they've made this far of an outreach like this, but it says here always on DRM and microtransactions. You couldn't even do basic things like trade players or make management decisions without buying into the game's microtransactions for certain modes.
That's awful.
Yeah.
I can't do something like that. Well, actually, I can't. That's EA.
So I think we are seeing the fine line. I think while we've been having this conversation, we have drawn the line between good microtransactions and bad microtransactions. And it's crazy that EA is stapled all over the bad side.
Yeah.
And they keep saying, why does EA, not to keep talking about them, why do they keep saying, hey, we'll do better next time, guys. We're going to do better. And they never do.
Well, that's how that goes.
Yeah.
It's because they buy the rights to huge things and they own the monopoly there. So, like the 2K fans that are not even the basketball fans, the people that are fans of the players will always buy FIFA games and the NFL games and the NHL games and the 2K games.
Well, yeah, but they're already making, because again, 2K sells so much on the consoles and the PC. It sells a lot more on the consoles because, it's a home system. But besides the point, they're already making $60 on that game. And
it's all about money.
Put it on top of that, because 2K 2014 probably didn't cost $60, or it could have. I don't remember. Like back then, games could have been 50, games were 40 at one point. But you're buying a full-fledged game, and gotcha mechanics.
Yeah.
If I paid $60 for Genshin Impact, and then I had all this stuff, fuck, that'd be terrible.
Yeah. But the point isn't, I don't think you should look at it like EA is in any way trying to make good games, because they aren't. They're trying to squeeze as much money. They are throttling people for their wallets is what's going on. They buy the monopolies, or they monopolize the intellectual rights for video games, and then they just squeeze the fan base for
I just
every
think-
dollar that they're worth.
What
Yep.
happened to the days that companies would still like they do today, spend a couple years developing a game, and you would go into your game shop, or if you were always a PC gamer, like in Jeff's case, you would buy that game and you would play the hell out of it, and that was it.
I'm
Yep.
gonna be honest. I think the issue came with like casual gaming, because people were less interested in games that they had to sit down and play through all of. They wanted the sort of like matches system, where you can play.
So that probably just came with the rise of the internet.
Yeah, to an extent.
PvP, yeah, but like the rise of the internet and the fact that now that we're not putting, because the games are going to get too big, you can't fit it all on that disc. So it's like, okay, we have to have a server that it downloads from. Who's to say we can't add more? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. DLC is not a bad thing at face value. It all depends on how it's executed. But like, I feel like there's now companies who are taking advantage of that, who are just like, yeah, it's not the same that I would put a game out and you would buy it and you would play it, and if it sucked, no one would buy it and we'd be screwed. Now we can release this game and patch it, like the case of something like Cyberpunk. Like, this game sucked, and if this was years ago, before, like, say we were on the PS1 or PS2 and a game had that many bugs, you can't patch the game. So you couldn't release a product unreleased because your business would fail.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red didn't suffer because of that. They got their game taken off the PlayStation Store for months until it was runnable, at least on the PS4, because it wasn't runnable. But like, why did they think they could do that?
I think at that point, I personally still believe that the internet was to blame for that. I don't think people had higher expectations than they should have. I think the sort of interviews with Keanu Reeves really blew up and became massive memes, and people just immediately lost their patience. And CD Projekt Red was faced with a decision: don't release the game, and lose out on a ton of revenue, because if they didn't release the game, people were going to be mad, and then they weren't going to buy it.
They already delayed it before.
Yeah, it didn't help that they had delayed it a long time before.
Right,
that.
but I mean, that's, for as big a game as Cyberpunk is, it's understandable that they needed more time. And I mean, when they started making Cyberpunk, you didn't have ray tracing. And then ray tracing came along, and they were trying to keep the game up to date with current technology. I think that was their biggest issue, to be honest with you. They were trying to keep a game that had been in development for years state of the art graphically. I think
It's
that
supposed to come out on the Xbox 360,
yeah,
Yes.
I think that was a huge part of what hurt the game. And I honestly believe that they shouldn't have released it. I believe that they released it because people were being ridiculously hostile about it, trying to get them to release it early. I personally don't place blame too much on CD Projekt Red. I don't think they should have released it in the state that it was in, but I can also kind of understand why they did. I place the blame mostly on the sort of meme makers of the world really blowing things out of proportions in terms of the popularity of all the memes around the game.
But I don't feel like we can blame the consumer for getting hyped over CD Projekt Red's marketing.
I don't think that the issue is that people were getting hyped. That's fine. I think the issue is that people were screaming at them to release the game.
Well, they're a
would,
business, though. Go ahead,
yeah.
Ben.
I would agree with Harry because I believe out of the four of us here, I can safely say I played the game the longest, and I saw it to fruition. And I will say, like, if you want honesty, and this is kind of going outside of this argument entirely, I don't think the game was ever going to be that great. Like, I'm not even saying that to be rude. I'm saying that as like a flat up and down judgment of what happened. Because there was, and this is an entirely different conversation, there's a lot that's just fundamentally wrong with the game that would have really couldn't be ironed out even if they had an extra month.
Yeah.
Because it's maybe not even fundamentally wrong, might be too harsh a criticism, but there's just like I could go into detail, but a couple of the things would be the main gameplay loop gets boring after a while. It's not very well suited to an open world setting. Mm-hmm. It's because missions, while they have loose story to them, it's not enough to keep you invested. And while the gameplay is fun, it is very repetitive if you want to go in stealthy, or if you want to, and you, of course, with the same character, you're really going to build to one attribute or the other. So you're either going to go in guns blazing all the time, or you're going to be running around and basically doing a point and click. Either way, honestly. I mean, either you're pointing and clicking with a gun, or you're pointing and clicking trying to sneak up behind a man and strangle him to death or whatever.
Well, I feel like how good a game is pretty subjective.
It is, but I'm just saying, from what they set out to do, at least to my understanding, what Cyberpunk was supposed to be is not what Cyberpunk is.
I just
and it never was going to be.
I know the Twitter mob has power to say that in any way, and that can severely affect, like, companies are just like, oh my gosh, people are mad. But they're also they're a large business. Mm-hmm. Like, it really shouldn't, like, yeah, it does matter what the internet says, because then it depends on what people are buying your game, and there's money lost as you delay it because the development time, you got to pay these employees. There's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot.
However, I don't think the people being angry was the sole reason they released it early, because of, all of the having to pay people, having to do this. Yeah. It cost a lot of money. Game development's not cheap. But we can't blame the consumer for the game being bad. How long was the game in development? Over 8 years? 8 years, maybe? Mm. Like, that's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm not... I don't think Harry or I, not to speak for you, Harry, is arguing that it's really the fault of the consumer that the game is poor or bad or anything you want to say. It's rather that the consumer definitely did not help in the scenario where they released the game earlier. And it's not to say, as you said, that the consumer is the sole cause, but they contributed no small part.
Like, if they knew it wasn't going to run on a PS4, why'd they release it on a PS4?
Because they said they would.
And why did they do that? Because money?
Or they thought they could.
But that's what I think it boils down to.
Well, they have developer kits, Ben. They know that it, like, they put in their trailer, they ran their gameplay trailer on the PC. They couldn't have not known, oh guys, it's release day. Oh wait, it doesn't run? Oh, we didn't know. No, they knew.
Well, I know they knew. I'm saying, especially considering the long development cycle, they initially thought they would release it on the PS4, and they made that promise, and to pull out of that promise would probably, at least they figured, which is maybe not the correct assumption to make, pulling out of that promise would cause worse feedback than sticking to the promise even if they can't keep it, which is entirely a stupid mindset. As well as, one could consider it a little bit more, I guess less kindly is a good way to put it, and say that they just really wanted to get the money that they could. And I think that's a fair thing to say.
I mean, we'll never know their true intentions, but it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It does. We can't blame the people who own the PS4 for wanting.
I'm not
it to
blaming
run
the
on
people
their
that own the
PS4.
PS4.
Yeah.
I am not blaming the people who weren't. I'm mainly blaming the social media influencers who screamed at Cyberpunk. I'm not blaming.
I did mention the Twitter mob is terrible.
Yes, that's who I'm blaming. I'm not blaming the individual consumer who never posted or said a damn thing about the game, but wanted to play it, bought the game, and then it didn't run. I think that the reason that it wasn't properly tested is because of the sudden decision to just drop it. Because obviously, when the game was released, it was not finished. They didn't have time to finish it. If the game wasn't finished, they probably weren't running tests to see if it could run on the PS4. And from a business standpoint, I think it's really scummy that they did it. But as a business, I can understand why instead of last minute, like the day before it's supposed to release, you tell everybody that owns a PS4, which is like a whole goddamn third of the market they're selling to, hey, this game isn't, or actually it would have been the Xbox and PS4 crowd.
Yes,
if they told them straight up the day before the game was set to release, hey, sorry, screw you, your game's not going to run and we're not going to give it to you. But if they told them that would have immediately killed the game.
But that's game development. We gotta think the game was in development for 8 years, and game development takes a long time. There's no way that they were just like, oh, we don't have time to test it on the console, because the way that these console architectures work, you have to use a developer kit to even code it. Like, you need to make sure that code runs. So I know they had to have been testing it on the PS4.
What I mean is they weren't. It's not like they took a finished game, ran it on the PS4 the night of, and said, "Oh no, this doesn't run."
Well, yeah.
I think
then they should have been more transparent about that. I
wholeheartedly agree. I think, but what I think happened, and it's like Ben said, when they said that it was going to run on the PS4. I personally think that they 100% were going to get it to run on the PS4 at that point in time.
At the time, the PS4 just came out when they said that.
Yeah, and then they did.
Right. But, I mean, look, we could sit here and argue about this all day. I don't think that... I'm not trying to make the argument that Cyberpunk is a good game.
No, but I'm just saying I don't think the Twitter mob had that much of an influence. Like, yes, it had a influence, but, and I the post-death threats after the game came out, I don't condone at all. However, I don't think the Twitter people or social media people saying release your game is the only reason the game was released.
Nobody said it was the only reason.
No, I know, and I'm not devaluing.
We're arguing over a non-point.
No, but I'm saying I don't think it had as big of an impact as you're saying.
Well, how big of an impact are we saying?
Well, it sounds like, because if you say you blame the social media mob...
Partially.
How much?
Yeah. I don't know.
You're speaking for Harry right now, Ben. You're speaking for Harry right now. I'm asking him. How much?
Partially blame...
How much?
Look, does it really matter at this point? I mean...
No, I'm not mad. I'm just asking.
I don't fucking know.
I didn't even buy the game, so I don't care about the game, but I'm asking, in your personal opinion, how much of it affected it made? Because I just don't think it made that much.
15%. Final answer. I don't know, man.
I'm not saying like an exact number.
I personally believe that a large part of the reason that the game was released early is because of the last minute hype and the screaming of the mob to release the game. And I could sit here and justify it, and then you could counter all of my points, and at the end of the day, we'll be running in a circle. At the end of the day, what should have happened is they should have said, hey, after 8 years of development, we're here to announce we fucked up. We can't finish the game. Project is canceled. That's what should have happened. They should have just cut their losses.
Yeah.
But as a business,
companies aren't very good at that.
I can understand why they release it, because they've put 8 years of development into this game. God knows how many millions of dollars that cost.
Yeah.
So just, put it out there as a business. I'm sure it hurt CD Projekt Red a little bit. I don't think it hurt them all that much, because you still have all of the Witcher fans who, all of those games are fantastic. So at the end of the day,
I like it.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that Cyberpunk was released a broken mess. They made their money back at least.
Yeah.
And CD Projekt Red themselves didn't get hurt that much. I think it sucks for the people that bought the game, but there's nothing, we can sit here and say that Cyberpunk sucked or Cyberpunk was good. It doesn't matter. It's, it is what it is.
I know. I'm not going to get personally attached to a game I haven't even played. So I'm not trying to go on you personally or anything at all. I was
right.
I just think a delayed game is eventually good. So not take all the business out, because I understand why they released it. Money, again, game development costs money.
Right.
But I think a delayed game is eventually good, while a rushed game stays bad.
I agree.
And that is a quote from Shigeru Miyamoto, the Mario guy.
I would say, while I don't necessarily disagree with the point you made, even in part, one could not acknowledge subjectivity, but I don't necessarily think if a game is delayed enough, it will be good.
Well, obviously, it's not supposed to be taken in a literal sense, because you could just have a bad concept.
Yeah.
But, again, like you said, it is subjective. I can find a game super awesome, and you could hate it.
You have anything to say, Jeff?
Well, I was just going, I don't really care too much about Cyberpunk, honestly. It coming out as the state it came out in, I'm not going to blame anyone. Probably Project Red is just CD Projekt is just like, in general, the ones at fault for not finishing their game, in my opinion. But, I can't really blame anyone for hyping it up too much or anything like that. It just, they decided to put out an unfinished product, and that's a problem. I think, it should have been at least a little bit more finished than what it was, but,
Well, yeah, that's the ideal scenario.
Right. Although a lot of games have been in that, as of recent, a lot more games have been like that. With 3 or 4 years ago, the same thing happened with why can't I think of the name? No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
And the game is good now.
Yep.
Yeah, they
fucking fantastic now.
Yeah, no, they fixed their problems. And
we want to talk about a game that released more broken than Cyberpunk even.
But we're not. Unfortunately, we're not talking about broken games. The main point that got tangent off of was this is happening, and I was just trying to get our takes of, do you like the direction that the video game industry is going?
No, of course not.
Or is it a bad thing? I think a lot of people can agree it's a bad thing.
I think that where AAA game studios like CD Projekt Red and Bethesda and all these huge companies, Activision especially, are constantly fucking up, making awful games, making games that are based entirely around squeezing money out of people that are susceptible to gambling or whatever. I think that the real future is in indie games. I honestly, Cyberpunk was probably the last game made by a big studio that I bought. at least that came out recently. I mean, barring like, no, Cyberpunk is the most recent because I got like Pokemon before I got Cyberpunk. And other than that, I've been getting mostly indie games because the genres of games that I play usually come from indie games. So you could make the argument that it's completely subjective, and because the games that I play only come from indie studios. But indie games, at least to me at this point in time, seem like they're focused more on the consumer as opposed to how much money can we squeeze out of people. They're more interested in giving people a good game that they can enjoy than making money.
Something they can be proud of.
Yeah, I think it's them being dedicated to the craft as opposed to, EA who spits out, broken
right.
games every year.
I think that people need to take a step back and look at the way that AAA studios are going, and honestly, and I think it's more console gamers than anything. I could be wrong. That might just be my perception, but I mean, games like
consoles are
games
very
like
profitable.
I mean, games like Warzone and Fortnite and stuff. The bulk of their player base is on console easily. So I think that console players especially need to take a look at the games that they're buying and the studios that they are continuing to fund, the poor business practices that they are continuing to fund.
Yeah.
I think they need to actually think about, the games that they want to play in the future. What do they want that game to be?
I don't blame while I don't blame the consumer for like we were talking about before, I don't blame the consumer for wanting their game to come out when they said it was going to come out. I do think that the consumer is at fault when it's, they wouldn't do X if you didn't buy X. Or
yes.
They wouldn't do X if you didn't buy Y. EA wouldn't put out an NBA game every year and throw all these microtransactions if people didn't buy the microtransactions and if people didn't buy NBA 2K.
And that's exactly my argument. Businesses wouldn't make terrible games if people didn't make terrible games profitable.
I will say, however, this is a point I was going to make earlier. In defense of people who buy terrible games, so to speak, companies have the ultimate vice grip, and we kind of talked about that with what EA has done.
They do. It's like,
and we've talked about
thing.
it before with what Nintendo does. Because I feel like, in honesty, if there's a company that's similar to Nintendo or similar to EA, it would be Nintendo in terms of their marketing strategy.
Yeah, with all the game re-releases, yes, I do put some blame on the consumer. If you didn't buy the remake game, they wouldn't keep doing it. But at the same time,
if you like the game, you like the game. Who else are you going to get it from? Same thing goes for literally anything else.
The company should at least have some. I know it's a company; they're not going to have a moral compass, but it's just maybe we shouldn't do that to our fans. Maybe we shouldn't do that to people. But if people are buying it, hey. People were mad that Apple took away the auxiliary port, but they still bought the phone.
All right, I mean,
guys,
a recent example that I like to think of. Yeah, I'm going to keep bringing back Madden. Madden 21 is by far and away the worst reviewed Madden game that has ever come out in terms of how much people like it or whatever. Everyone hates it pretty much, right? It's an awful, buggy game that never got good and is just a terrible game. But it is also the single highest selling Madden game ever.
Interesting.
I think on launch, I'm not 100% sure, in total, but at launch, it is the first 2 weeks. It was the highest selling Madden game of all time. And, I didn't buy the new one, 22, that just came out, but my brother was telling me it is literally a copy paste, and all the rookies and stuff, they didn't even get they used the same exact caster voice lines that they used in the last game, and they didn't even update it for the new rookies that came in or anything.
And it's just a blatant cash grab.
Right? Yeah.
You could argue that they could have updated say Madden 21 or Madden 20. You could argue that they could have just released DLC packs.
It could. So, people call it at this point just a roster update, because that's what it is. It's an updated roster that it does nothing. You get. They tried doing something this year where they added new scouting and more in-depth scouting features for franchise mode, and you being able to hire head coaches and stuff like that, which I think is good. I think that's a good way to take it. But when they just copy and paste the actual gameplay and don't update it, or I'm reading some reviews on it right now, and it was like, oh, the next gen movement for consoles isn't even allowed on PC and stuff like that. And I'm like, what? That should just be a portion of the game that should automatically be there. Why isn't it available on PC? It just seems really, really dumb that they continue to, and it's still a buggy mess. It always has been on release, and they just put out new updates where it's, oh yeah, it's not as buggy. It's so
we
dumb.
Tried. Game
Play
development's not
devil's
easy.
advocate.
Granted, game development's not easy, man.
Yeah.
That's fair, but
Yeah, but it's not an excuse. You're getting paid to develop. Fixing bugs is hard, but you're expected to fix them because that's your job. Go ahead.
Play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, go ahead.
They've been making EA games for forever. And there's realistically only so much you can do to alter gameplay. I'm not saying that, I don't know. I feel like there's if you look at how a Madden game from 2021 plays compared to a Madden game from 2011, the graphics are going to be better, the UI is going to be different, but realistically, the gameplay isn't all that different.
Oh, no, I know. I think I totally agree, even. I know, and I've thought about that in the past where, every single time they release a new Madden game, it's the exact same. You can't add much more, and people are asking for much more. And that's why I think, them adding more advanced scouting and them being able to hire a different head coach and different offensive coordinators and stuff like that, I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
However, it's like they could just add that as an update to a game that they could call just Madden,
right?
Or something like that.
Yeah.
They've got to be pulling in. They've got to be pulling in buckets of money to be able to just release the same thing with a coat of paint, and people will buy the crap out of it.
But you know what? I think that the Madden games are going to go away because if you look at the ratings for football, they have never been lower in NFL history. Nobody is watching football anymore. The interest in football has rapidly evaporated. So
it probably has something to do with politics and stuff like that.
It 100% does.
I still enjoy football, but it's like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Right. And I'm not trying to get political, but that's just, those are the facts. Ratings for football have never been lower.
Right.
People are not watching football, so I think the interest there is dying, and I think the NFL games are going to go away as a result of that. I'm not saying that this is going to be the last NFL game they make ever, but I think they are definitely going to start petering off, and I think they'll start focusing more on games like 2K. Even more so than they already are, because the EA definitely markets 2K more than they do the NFL games at this point, I would say, or the Madden games even.
Probably, yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't see those ads in general, but
I mean, honestly, I think 2K overtook Madden a couple years ago. I think.
well, both of them are very. I mean, it's a sport, so I mean, it's got lots of
Right.
fan base, regardless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Sports fans when they see sports.
So I don't know. I don't like the way that obviously we don't know what's going to happen. Companies can make
Yeah.
different decisions, but it's going in a bad direction, and not just EA games are one to blame. I feel like the concept of stamina, like daily stamina, being in more games is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Because of the success of Genshin Impact on the PC and the consoles, and there are people who will defend those stamina systems. Like, well, why don't you go outside, bro? You don't have to play that much. Like, that's so backwards. It's like,
I think
so do the developers not want me to play their game?
right. I think I completely agree with you. The stamina system in video games is terrible. There's this game on the phone. I don't even remember what it's called. It's basically a sniper game. You shoot the same randomly generated dude holding a briefcase and holding a gun against a woman's head, and it's like it's a legitimately fun game, and I really enjoy it. However, it has a stamina system, so I'll re-download it like every couple months, play for like a day and a half, and then when I'll play for like 15 minutes, and then it says, "Oh, $5 to recharge your stamina." I'm just like, I'm not going to play this game anymore then. If I want to play the game, I want to play the game.
And it doesn't recharge over like the day or something?
Yeah, it's like every 5 hours it'll recharge.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, stamina systems in mobile games, like you were saying earlier, I think kind of makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes more sense there because I'm not going to be gaming on my phone for very long. In fact, I don't game on my phone anymore at all because I just don't. If I'm either working or watching YouTube on my lunch break, and then I come home and I play on my computer. I don't use my phone for gaming anymore.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really affect me. But mobile game ports to computer that still keep that stamina upgrade is a terrifying trend.
It's not even that it's a port, like that games from mobile are going to get ported and keep that. It's that I think developers are going to see, oh, this game had wild success.
Oh yeah.
And
I know what you meant, but I was thinking more like, and that's what I meant. I meant more like Genshin being ported to computer, because it didn't start on computer, did it?
It launched day one on PC.
It did launch on computer, yes.
Okay. Well, but then even then, a game with a stamina system on PC having as much success as Genshin had is terrifying, because you're right. People are going to see that. It's like battle passes. I hate the idea of a battle pass. It's stupid because it's like, here's an extra $30 to... I mean, in most cases, it's not terrible because it's all cosmetic stuff. But then, like in Pokemon Unite, they had a ton of like actual characters that you could get if you bought the battle pass, which a lot of the characters do offer competitive edges because, and Smite is kind of the same way. A lot of gods are really broken and a lot of gods really suck. So if you haven't bought the God Pass, and like the gods that are on rotation for, is it every week or every month?
Every week.
The gods that are on rotation for that week, if they all suck, you're screwed. You're just going to have a bad week. So I think having cosmetic items in a battle pass isn't that bad. having items that will legitimately affect your performance in the game is very bad, I would say.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to go. I mean, I like it, but I like battle passes, but
Yeah. Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
What time are we at?
It's 8:30. We've been going for like 2.5 hours.
So I think unless there's any final points anybody wants to make, I think we could probably do with wrapping up. Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, at least personally, I would say, on to conclude, while I don't think the direction the game industry is going is right or good or any positive word really, I understand the why, but that doesn't always justify it. Definitely
Right.
not in this case. And I think, as Harry said, indie games are honestly the sort of ship out of this storm, or whatever you want to say. You Fortnite no. But yeah, and of course, indie games cannot appeal to the same things that AAA games can. And as said, I don't really personally put any. I don't blame people for buying games that are bad. I do it all the time, frankly, especially if it seems. But you know.
Well, Harry, real quick to that point about buying for only indie games, I think that sometimes they can have really, really good games. I mean, CD Projekt Red also was the creators of the Witcher franchise, and that's an amazing franchise. So it's like I can't say I would only buy from indie game studios.
Yeah, I wasn't saying only buy from indie game studios, and I also did raise the point that I am 100% biased in that argument because
the kind of games.
It's entirely, I don't play a lot of shooters, I don't play a lot of MOBAs, I don't play a lot of popular game genres in general.
Yeah.
I play RTS games and city builders and stuff like that. So my only option really is indie studios.
I don't necessarily blame people for expecting better games from AAA, considering the amount of money they have.
And that's my main argument. I'm less so blaming people for buying stupid games, because for the most part, games like the Call of Duty franchise, which has definitely gone very far downhill from where it was, Battlefield as well. These games, you can really only get games like that from these AAA studios. So if that's the kind of game you like, you're shafted, because the people that are making the kind of game you like are making terrible games, and there's nowhere else to go for you. And I mean, especially for console gamers, which is the bulk of gamers, they don't have a computer that they can go to and buy, a Call of Duty knockoff that's better made, maybe not graphically, but the actual gameplay is better than
Roblox.
Getting killed by the same kid that's goes to school and then comes home and grinds for hours on Warzone, and then you come home from your 9 to 5 just trying to play a couple matches of a game to unwind from work, and by the end you want to kill yourself. That's what a lot of gamers are, and it's quite frankly, it's terrible that that's the reality they're faced with. Is there's no way out from the sort of loop of coming home from work and just immediately having no fun.
I mean, more time you play, the better you get at a lot of these games.
Right.
But,
and I mean, my argument is, I don't know.
It's,
I don't know.
It's
my
hard.
argument is.
It's a hard one because there's positives and there's negatives.
Yeah, as with most.
I wouldn't mind seeing a studio or some sort of AAA studio putting out a game and just that's the game. There you go. maybe later have an expansion pass. I like expansion passes. I like DLC, and as long as it's done right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of hard to say when these big businesses, they're big because they made a lot of money when the game was good. They only see the consumer as money.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll see
And I think
that.
that's most of the problem, is that these studios are so ridiculously huge that at this point they can put out the same shitty copy-pasted game from last year, and they coast by on name alone and the fact that there is nowhere else for people to go.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's the problem, is that too many AAA companies have sort of monopolized game franchises. You know, people, at least from what I see on like Twitter or Reddit or wherever, people really aren't playing new games or new game franchises. They're always playing, it's always Call of Duty or Fortnite or
That dang old League of Legends
or Battlefield, like console gamers, which is the bulk of people these days, aren't playing they aren't buying new genres. They're buying old genres that they remember being good when they were kids, and the game is completely different now because the developers don't care about making a good game anymore.
Maybe not even so much old genres, but so much as so old titles.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, like old series like Call of Duty and Battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
The new games are, and it could be subjective, but I don't think it is. They aren't as good as the old ones were. So I think that's the problem, is that these AAA companies made so much money when they were the only people in the field back then that nobody else can even get a foot in the market these days.
Not like you can go back and play those old games.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Most of them don't have servers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That and
I
I think Black Ops 2 is just full of hackers.
Probably. I know Modern Warfare 2 on PC is impossible to play multiplayer anymore because there's so many hackers.
Yep.
But yeah.
Same with Black Ops 2. Same with Black Ops 2 on PC.
And yeah.
Talk a lot about it.
Anything about it because they're so old.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Nor should we really expect them to do anything about the old games.
Yeah.
We should just expect them for the new games to be just as good.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm not saying that I should be able to go back and play Black Ops 1 and expect to have the same exact experience as when I was 10. But if I wanted to pick up a new Call of Duty game, it shouldn't be all that different. But instead, it's just the gaming community, especially in shooters and stuff, it's just really toxic. People aren't interested in having a good time anymore. They're interested in
winning,
making your opponent cry.
That too.
That's funny.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I think that's a good leave it off.
Yeah.
We could even talk more about online gaming as a whole.
Yeah, perhaps.
Just strategies, things like that.
The internet has made a big change in the gaming industry.
Yeah. It has made a big change in everything, arguably, but yeah.
Our time has passed.
But, we'll probably next week talk on the iOS 15 update. We haven't really talked about that, but hopefully, maybe the entire update will be out by then. Who knows? And
that'll give me more time to use it.
Yeah, give a better in-depth review on it anyways. But anyways, thank you so much for watching the Gaming and Gaming Accessories podcast.
Like and subscribe.
Like, subscribe.
Hit that like button with your
smash that bell.
Smash
the notification button.
Smash.
Give Ben a kiss.
Live.
No.
We're live.
Yeah, and if you hit that like button right now, Ben will come to your house.
Actually, if you hit the like button, Ben will come to your house. And if you hit the notification icon, or if you subscribe, I'll DM you Ben's address.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can go to Ben's house.
Yeah.
So you can go to Ben's house, and you can give him a kiss instead of him going to your house and giving you a kiss.
I never promised a kiss.
There's that.
Depends.
Well,
Thank you
so much for watching.